Welcome to the Cybersecurity Mentors podcast. In today's episode, we have a special treat for you. We're diving into the journeys of two incredible women who began their cybersecurity careers as interns in the Clemson SOC. Please join me in welcoming Melissa and Kelly. They'll be sharing their experiences, insights, and the pivotal role that mentorship played in their careers. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey, glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for accepting John's invite.
Of course.
Yeah, I always like seeing your little LinkedIn messages. It's been a while, so I'm glad I can help out.
Yeah, awesome. So really just want to start out a little bit, really talking about your stories and how you got to where you are now, killing it in cybersecurity. And we'll kind of bounce around here. This is our first time having 4 people on the podcast, so we're figuring this out, but it's all good.
Yeah.
But to start with, we'll start with Melissa. But how did you find cybersecurity? I think you've told me this before, but I've forgotten. But how did you find it as a path, and when did you know that it was the path?
Yeah. So I actually had some family that was in cybersecurity when I was going through school, and I had just switched into computer science. I originally started off in engineering. And it was actually like one of the first semesters that I was studying computer science, and I joined the cybersecurity club on campus, and started kind of dabbling in that. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool, you know. Um, and then I honestly started applying to both types of internships, like either software dev or security. It's kind of like, we'll see where this goes. Um, and then I ended up getting an interview with y'all in the SOC. And initially it was just kind of like, this is a cool group of people. Like, I think I'm definitely going to learn a lot. And the rest is kind of history. I got more and more involved in the SOC and the security club on campus. And it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, was
Awesome.
there like a moment there where you're in the SOC, you're working and or the club that you're like, this is for sure the way, or is it like, this is kind of I was already on the path I thought, but this just confirmed it? Or was there some moment that's like, nah, this has happened and it's triggered that, this is the path?
I think I was kind of like already on board, but kind of learning all of the analyst skills and responding to incidents. I just really, really enjoyed it. I'm kind of a nosy person, so like looking through all those logs just like scratched something for me. I was like, this is so much fun. So I think that kind of like sealed the deal, you know?
Yeah, awesome.
That's
Cool,
awesome.
thank you.
Yeah. Kelly,
Okay.
so same
Yeah.
question for you. How did you find cybersecurity? Right, and when did you know this is it? This is the path for me.
Yeah, so in a similar fashion, I started off in engineering as well when I was at Clemson and realized the hardware part was not in my wheelhouse, so I switched over to computer science. But full-on software development didn't really ever speak to me. I didn't enjoy coding all day, every day. So I remember specifically when I took my first networking class at Clemson. That was the first time I kind of got a taste of cybersecurity. I think we might have had like one chapter, something very small in there that kind of detailed at a high level what that profession may be, but they kind of touched on it and never discussed it again. And, cybersecurity also, to me at the time was daunting. I was very nervous to go into it. I thought I wasn't technical enough. I thought I was already behind the curve, that I couldn't get involved. So I actually ended up taking during the COVID summer, I had a remote internship doing process data mining for a supply chain or something like that. A full remote first internship ever. And I hated it. It was a horrible experience, not good. And I remember that summer right then and there, I just, decided to take the jump. And I actually called the SOC myself there that summer. I called Carlos without knowing anything about it. I just looked at Clemson hoping there would be some sort of cyber job. And I didn't even know about the club. I wasn't involved with the club or anything. So I remember calling Carlos and he was like, we don't really have any openings now, but check back in the fall and I'm sure we can get you situated. And I was like, okay, so that's exactly what I did. I found the application in the fall and applied that way. And then it was kind of game over for me from there. Like I knew like as soon as I was working, like probably like 4 months into the SOC, that was something I wanted to keep doing. Um, but I always credit like the Clemson CSOC. I tell everyone this that I come across. That's where I got my foundation for cybersecurity. I wouldn't say it was necessarily through Clemson because I decided to minor in cybersecurity after the fact. So I really got my foundation from the CSOC. And that's where I learned everything. I was so green. Everything I learned was from there from the get go. And yeah, so again, kind of the type of work that we were doing, the exposure to the possibilities and how the field could expand into more than just SOC work. That's kind of what allowed me to be interested. And I realized it was something I was actually pretty decent at, and it was some coding, but not fully coding, very analytical. And that's what I enjoyed about it. So that was kind of my path to cyber.
Love it. That's great. So
Yeah.
did you just search like internships for security? Like, how did you find it?
Yeah, so I just typed in, I went on Google because I was so distraught with my bad internship experience. I was just like Clemson Cybersecurity. And I found the club, but it was like, join when you actually get on campus. And this was in the summer. And then I saw that you guys had your own, like you guys had a web page up displaying that you guys had a SOC and that it was student led, but there wasn't
Yeah.
really like a link to apply, but there was a phone number of just calling the SOC in general. And that's the number that I ended up calling. So I think Carlos was
man.
probably very confused when he got a call from
Yeah.
a student saying, "Can I join? Can I join?
Yeah.
Like I have no experience, but can I help?" So yeah, so that's how I found you guys through the website.
No, that's great because really just just like Steve when he showed up, he's like, "Hey, I'm interested." Showing that interest, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you freaked him out. And you're like, "What? How did you get this number?" So
Yeah, he
that's
had
really
no
cool
idea I
though.
was a student at first. He kept saying, "Sorry, you say you go to Clemson?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
No,
Wow.
very cool. Yeah. So, really just thinking about that SOC experience, and I'll let Steve dive into there.
Yeah. So I think I was still there and interviewed you two for the position. And then maybe I left afterwards because it was during COVID. So we never really got to meet. Like we never really got to be in person. And I was already gone by the time everybody came back to being on campus.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember like explicitly interviewing with you in person, and then COVID hit, and then everything was online after that.
okay. Yeah. 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 Was it the same for you, Kelly, or did Carlos interview you?
I think just Carlos interviewed me over the phone. So actually, my first few months at working at the CSOC were completely remote, and so I didn't know
Okay.
what
Yeah.
anyone looked like.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. COVID just turned everything upside down for everyone. Um, but yeah, so let's talk about the sock. So what was the first day like? Like for you? Let's start with you, Kelly. What was the first day like for you, like coming into the sock, like not knowing much about it? You're coming in, you're seeing our location, and then just, working in the sock.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of had almost 2 days, two first days, I guess, at the SOC, because again, I started remotely. So I kind of, got the fundamentals of the systems and I was being trained by other SOC analysts. But it didn't really all come together for me until I was able to walk into the SOC for the first time and I kind of saw the layout. And it was all very formal to me. I was very intimidated. I'm not gonna lie. And I didn't expect to actually work with actual professionals who were dealing with Clemson security. Like I was right there in the room with them and they didn't seem bothered by that fact that all these students were trying to learn. So in that respect it felt like a very safe space for someone like me who didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I might have had some computer science background, right? But in terms of
Yeah.
cybersecurity, it felt like a very safe place to ask questions, not feel stupid, and kind of just take new opportunity there. And also the other SOC analysts, I would say, like everyone had different backgrounds, but everyone's knowledge is really vast. So I was actually able to even learn from like my fellow students, and that was really cool. Like Sean and Adim, if you remember John, like they were huge for me to just pick their
Yep.
brains all the time. So
Yep.
it's kind of my first impression. Intimidation at first, but then a feeling of like safety, I guess, to learn.
Good. That's awesome. And you know, it was something that even before when I first started and John was like, yeah, we got the SOC, we got, you know, we're trying to build it. Culture, building that culture within the SOC was very, very important. And it still is, but it just goes to show that, you know, it's paying off. So Melissa, for you, same question. How was it when you actually got to like start in the SOC?
I remember being like so stressed out probably my first week, like, because it's an internship and it was my first ever internship, so I didn't really know what to expect. And then, we have the nice dashboard that we run all the tasks through and everything. And I remember doing those, and I was like, oh my God, this is real stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I have so much power and I don't know anything, you know?
What are these people thinking, giving me this much
Right.
control?
Exactly. I was so stressed out. And obviously, like, you figure it out, you get better at the task, and then you start doing your own things. And it was a lot of fun. But I just remember being so stressed when I first started. But everybody's obviously really nice. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here talking anyway. So,
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, and it's, we were talking about earlier before we started the episode, but it's just incredible how, you know, students come through the SOC, they grow, they advance, they move on, and then we have a new fresh set of students coming in, and it's just like continues to go. And I mean, I'll let John chime in, but I mean, I think the SOC continues strong, and it will for years to come because of people like you two. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we first started, when the stock first started, it was really learned by doing right out the gate, and not much of there's a safety net there. It might seem like there's not much of a safety net. It's like, hey, we're on the high wire, we're doing this thing. I can't believe they have this much access and they're relying on me to stop all these things, right? But there's still the overarching. Yes, we do give you a lot of responsibility and a lot of access and a lot of control, but there's always some kind of like cross checks and double checks to make sure you guys are good and you don't blow things up or whatever, right? But I mean, I think that's what really makes it useful right out the gate is you are actually analyzing and investigating events, incidents, and versus, hey, well, here's some tickets, go follow up on these tickets, and you're just doing tickets. And really, like, some people are scared to do what we do, and I've heard them talk about this, like, wait a minute, you're giving students this data, this access. And the way I describe it is like, they have more risk if they do something malicious or something in that way. If they're trying to get a career in cybersecurity, then you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot
Yeah.
and do something just as a student, because that can get out, and your reputation is everything. And so if you have a bad reputation, then I'm not gonna, try to support you to get a job because we found out that you did XYZ. So fortunately, knock on wood, we've never had a problem. And it's just kind of how we've always rolled with the SOC, is like, yep, here we go. Strap in, get ready for the ride.
yeah, buckle up. We're going to learn some stuff today.
Do any of you two remember any specific incident, or I mean, and we're not talking too many details here, but any specific task or anything at all that maybe like left an impact?
I remember, like, it was one of the first ones that I had, like, an incident that I had caught myself and, like, walked through the entire process. But we were monitoring the phishing inbox, and somebody had sent in, like, an HR form that they were trying to change important information. Um, and it had actually, like, gotten through HR, and they thought it was legitimate, but then, like, their higher up sent it to our box, was like, this doesn't seem right. And I remember, like, piping up on the call because it was COVID, so we were just like on that Zoom call all the time. I was like, "Hey guys, I think I found this thing. Can you check this, please?" And then, like, obviously we went through it all, and it was actually a phishing email, so saved somebody's paycheck that day. But
That's great. And
Yeah.
we still get those, by the way. We
Yeah.
still
oh,
get
I'm
those.
sure, I'm sure.
Yeah. And that, thinking about the dark days of COVID, like, if I were to go back now, if we had to do that, hopefully never ever again. But man, just like this one Zoom call, the pitch black darkness, nobody's talking for however many hours. We learned some lessons, I think, from that from that
We
experience. Let's not
we
do that
did.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I mean, it was the best we could come up with at the time, for
Yeah.
real.
Yep. Nobody knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah. So thinking about, being at the SOC and learning and getting your experience there, which was awesome. And then you're getting toward the end of your career at Clemson and career at the SOC, and you started to explore potential opportunities, starting to get the resume out there, starting to interview a little bit. What was that experience like? Just dipping your toes into that water of the job market, and how did it go to start those interviews? I'm curious really too about the interviews. What was the interviews? What were the interviews like? So Kelly, would you talk about that first?
Yeah. I also do want to note that the CSOC helped me get an internship the following summer, a cybersecurity internship where I do not think I would have been a qualified candidate if I didn't have the CSOC experience prior. And that was working for an aerospace defense company out in Reno doing security engineering. So a little bit more
Wow.
technical. But, without having the experience in the CSOC, they would have never even considered me for that internship. And then I was able to use both experiences to take that out with me when I actually applied for real jobs when I was, a senior. And that, I think that impressed a lot of people, that much cyber experience, with a student, especially because, cyber, I feel like, is kind of niche, when you're getting into it this young. It's not just like software development or anything like that. So those two experiences on my resume really, I think, helped me stand out. I will say I went crazy with it. I applied to like 50 jobs in a really short amount of time. And I only figured out towards the end that, you can use that AI that can help you tailor your resume to the job description. Calvin suggested that I do that. And ever since I did that, I was getting all these interviews like back to back to back.
Yeah.
Um, and I was applying, yeah, for everything from security engineer to SOC analyst to incident response. Like I was, I liked it all. So I didn't really care where I landed. Um, and in terms of how the interviews actually went, it really depended on the industry in which I was applying to. So I applied to, some like government contractors, like Lockheed Martin. I made it pretty far in their interview process. And theirs was really technical towards the end. The beginning, it's kind of just, cybersecurity concepts. Do you know what this means? Do you know what that means? Situational scenario things were very popular, I found, during the interview process. And then as you would go through the process longer, it would get a little bit more technical. Sometimes they would send out assessments that they would want you to code. But then, for other industries like Spotify or, the restaurant industry, the rest, like the job I have now, there was very minimal technical questions. It was all scenario based, all reaction based, and kind of like how you approach things through an ethical lens. That was huge for a lot of companies. So yeah, it was vastly different interview process depending on which type of industry you were interested in. But the baseline for all of it was, cybersecurity concepts. So yeah, Melissa, I
Gotcha.
don't know if you've had similar experience.
Yeah, I would say my interview experience coming out of school was definitely the same. It was a lot of just what do you know and what don't you know? Like I literally had a guy in an interview say, "I'm going to ask you so many questions until you literally don't know what I'm talking about." That was probably
Wow.
the most stressful one. But yeah, it was a lot more of just the situational and how would you respond in these incidents. I don't think I ever I didn't have that many hands-on keyboard interviews for security jobs.
Yeah,
So
was it? Sorry, let's jump in. So the
go ahead.
situational, was it? And this might be your questions too, Steve. Hey, this just happened. You've got an alert, you've got an event, you've got a whatever. What do you do first? What do you do
Yeah.
second? Those kind of things.
Yeah, what is your thought process? Where are you going to go? Who are you going to contact? What are your next steps?
Gotcha.
I also had an interview question that asked me to take the perspective of the hacker. And
Mm.
the person interviewing me was just like, okay, if you wanted to steal my identity, what would be some of the things you would take right now to try to hack me? And I had to like
Hmm.
walk him through these hypothetical, steps I would take. I think back then I said something like, well, I would fish you to get your Amazon credentials first and get into your Amazon. And looking back, I'm like, why did I say that? But but he loved that answer though. I guess I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
so they really wanted to see, from that perspective, or in terms of like blue teaming, like you have this type of asset. Describe it. Where would you put this in your network? How would you let access to it? Depending on what it's used for. That type of like network mapping in that way. Like DMZ zone, like what are you going to put in there? Things like that were popular, I found.
Gotcha.
This is like very good information.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate it. So yeah, because one of the things you mentioned, Kelly, was tailoring your resume to the position you're applying to, and that's something that we've talked in previous episodes, how that is important. You can't just have one, I call it a master resume, and then just send that resume to everywhere, because there's so many layers that you have to get through before you actually get it to a human being where they can actually look at it. So no, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is something we definitely tell our listeners to do. But also just the situation, like the situational situations that they put you through and kind of scenarios, that's good too, because we do that even when we're trying to hire somebody. But John likes to actually get their hands on keyboard and have the interns in there, and we're looking to see how do they react under pressure, and we look to see how they work in a team, because they are able to utilize the interns. And we've talked about this already in previous episodes. We've had people just crash and fail that have 5, 6, 7 years of experience in cybersecurity, but just those two simple things, they crumble under pressure and they don't know how to work in a team. So no, this is all great insight. Thank you.
Yeah. And a really big thing about that too is I can kind of see what the angle is there. Just to, number one, benchmark what you know. For me, when we do that, it's not pass or fail. It's just to know where you are, right? What skills you have, what experience you have. Now, if you really, really you have no skills, then it's tough. But I just want a resume can say a lot. You can put a lot on a resume, but until you can really ferret out what they know how to do, because they may say, oh, Splunk they may put that on their resume, experience with Splunk. Okay. How do you know if they are good at it, if they're okay at it, if they're experts at it? And they can tell you, oh, I'm really good at this. And then you get them on the job and they're like, oh, you've never even, you just barely touched it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
So I can see where they're trying to like just get you in different situations to think through and feel through what your knowledge is, and then they can evaluate from there. But usually it's more about how you handle pressure. That's the thing that we try to do is, what are you going to do when a real thing happens, a real incident happens, and you're in the fire and everything's on fire? How do you handle that situation? Do
Yeah.
you crumble? Do you fold? Do you give up? Whatever. And people have big egos and they think, I have to have all the answers. I
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to solve all the problems. And that's the wrong answer. You need to be able to say, hey, I don't know what to do here. I
Yep.
need help. Hey, let me ask for help. What I'm not sure what to do here. Could you help me? Right. And that's the right approach. But people really get caught up in the interview and they think they have to be the one that has all the answers, but that's wrong. In my opinion, that's not right.
Yeah.
So good stuff though. Really good stuff.
Yeah. So question, were there any, let me see, were there any tools that you might have had some level of experience using in the SOC that ended up coming in handy in your day-to-day jobs? Or any, I guess, any similar tools? They don't have to be the exact same, but if it's a SIM or a, vulnerability scanner, just anything that you had experience with.
I personally I've used Splunk and that's definitely been helpful. And then also now I manage CrowdStrike for my company, and I had some previous experience with that from some internships, just as an analyst, and now managing that tool that has been super helpful to kind of see both sides of that. So I definitely recommend if you're just starting out and you do get your foot in the door, touch as many tools as possible. You never know when something's going to come back up again. Because like when I was an intern for another company, I wasn't even supposed to be logged into CrowdStrike, but I was in there looking at things, and now it's come in handy. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with the sim work specifically. What I've found is if you've had any type of experience with a certain type of tool, people assume, you can adjust really easily to the same type of tools, just, different ones. So,
Yeah.
when I said I had experience with Splunk, they let me use Elasticsearch and Kibana. And then when I said I did both of those things, I now use QRadar. So they're all under the same family, but it's just a little bit different in learning exactly where everything is. So that definitely gives you an advantage if you say you have any type of experience in one, because also, what I found, a lot of these tools can do more than one thing. Like, a SIM's not only used for SOC work. Like at my company, they have a separate one used just for network things. That doesn't really have anything to do with security. So, it's just a matter of getting trained on the tool for what they want to use the tool for, not that the tool's only centered around one thing. And that's also what I find to be like the beauty of cybersecurity. Again, just the flexibility of it, and how you can apply things differently to the same tool.
Yep, agreed. Very
Yeah.
good. So let's talk about, you got a job. You're in the big world of
Big
the
leagues.
full-time, the big leagues of the full-time job. I'm sure that was nerve-wracking, nervous, but you had some actual intern job like experience and other intern, not just at the SOC, but also other internships, which I'm sure helped. But here you go, you've got your first job out of college in security, which is awesome. What was that like? Just kind of the first, if you can remember, first days, first week, whatever. Okay, now I've got a lot to learn about the company. I've got so many people to learn about, my team, etc. There's a lot that goes on with that experience. So, Melissa, how was that for you?
I would say it was definitely a lot to take in. I think part of something that I didn't really pick up on when I was interviewing is how vast the security industry is, and then like actually sitting in a corporate environment and seeing all the different facets of security in a large scale kind of like opened my eyes within those first few weeks of, hey, there's literally a team for everything in security. Um, so it was definitely kind of just cool to start introducing myself to those people and figuring out what exactly they do and how it correlates to what I do, and how we can all work together and all that fun stuff. So it was definitely like an eye-opening experience entering into the corporate world. But yeah.
Yeah, we just had the scrappy team where everybody does everything, right? And then you get to these big companies, like there's like 50 people that do this one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah,
there's just so
yeah,
many more. Because I mean, the SOC, I think we had like maybe 20 people that I regularly interacted with, and then I get 50 different emails a day. So
yeah, yeah. Great, thank you, Kelly. How about you?
I'd say for me, at the very beginning, I struggled with being impatient. Because, Melissa, I don't know if it was like this for you, but they restricted my access heavily when they were training me. And I was like, how am I supposed to learn if you're not going to let me see anything or have any of this access to practice or give me a dummy configuration to play in? So they restricted my access heavily for like the first 6 months of my training, and I was just shadowing people. And the way our security team is laid out is we're like a service security team. So we actually administer all kinds of different type of security, and then they later siloed us out into specific ones. But at the beginning, I was seeing everything. And I remember my manager telling me, you have your hand in too many cookie jars. You gotta just be patient, and that was my struggle, because I wanted to know everything about everything without taking the time, I think, to actually slow down and understand why things were done and understand the proper processes, in place. And then I eventually got my access and things got better. But impatience was huge for me. Yeah.
Yeah, Clemson gives me all this access. Why?
I
Why
know.
can't I
you
have
could just
this?
log into everything.
Yeah.
Not
Oh man.
everything. Calm down. I know people are like, "What?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
people listening to this, she's lying. She's lying.
yeah.
Don't
No,
listen to me.
that's great. That's a great perspective. Um, Anything else, Steve, on this topic?
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, mentorship.
So, I mean, obviously the podcast here, we are trying to help as many people as possible out there that have an interest in cybersecurity, are trying to get into it, or are trying to advance their careers. And it's all around the topic of mentorship. So I want to kind of talk to you guys about how mentorship played a role within your cybersecurity journey up to this far, and if do you continue to have mentors now, or kind of where mentorship played a part. So if Kelly, let's start with you.
I would say specifically from the CSOC, I still talk to Carlos, and I was talking to him heavily throughout the interview process. Every time I made it to a new round, I would call him, I would Discord him and say, okay, this is what this job is. Do you think this is good? Do you think it's bad? Like, what are the risks here? And I really leaned on him to kind of give me some different perspective as someone who I knew was in my corner and who also saw me work and kind of knows my tendencies and knows things that maybe I may be better at that I can't see myself.
Yeah.
So that was a nice comfort to have him there during the interview process. And now, even, in my current role, I'm lucky my manager, he's very supportive and he's always trying to give me, exposure to new things. He puts me in rooms where he knows will benefit my career in the long run. I would say mentorship, at least for me, gives me peace of mind and it gives me someone to bounce my perspectives off of because I know I can only see so much myself. That mentorship, I value that a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. Melissa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed like all the mentors that I've worked with over the past few years. Like I also definitely talked to Carlos a lot about like certifications and career paths because, I still don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. There's so many things, but just like having people to talk to who have experienced those different industries um, is really just kind of reassuring. Like, luckily, I also have a very supportive manager, and he's helped me set up mentorships and shadow sessions with people within my company. So I've been able to kind of see what day to day jobs and other facets of security would look like to see if it's something that interests me. And that's huge, I think, for me. It just gives you more peace of mind, like, oh, this is what this kind of looks like. This might be interesting, or ooh, maybe not. This doesn't really suit me all that well. So mentorship is definitely something awesome. Just at least have somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you two be open to mentoring someone, and or have you had a chance to mentor someone yourself?
Yes, I've mentored. We call them tech associates at my company. So like every summer or winter, whenever the class comes on, they usually ask some of the older tech associates who are just like new hires, they just graduated, um, to kind of give the lay of the land. And obviously, if you're interested in a specific field like security, they'll put you in line with somebody who is also interested in security. So I've mentored quite a few people through that little program that they've put together. So it's definitely fun.
That's great. Giving back to the
Yeah.
community. Kelly, what about you?
I have no true mentorship experience. I'm still the lowest man on the totem pole. They haven't hired a new security
Whatever.
person in my company since I was hired, and I'm pretty much the youngest by 10 years. I'm not even kidding on my current team. So everyone just calls me the baby all the time. But I really haven't had, we've had no interns or anything. I
Yeah.
would say the closest I've gotten is, here, and I'm based in Louisville, and I've gone to talk to students at the university and given
Oh,
them kind of
great.
my 2 cents on how I got involved. But,
Yeah.
I haven't really worked with an individual and helped lead them in a way that Melissa has. So hopefully I get to do that.
Gotcha.
I just haven't had the
Yeah.
opportunity yet.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question. You would be open to it, though.
Yeah, most
Awesome.
definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, John and I really believe in mentorship. We have seen it in the SOC with you and others. It works. So we like to push it a lot. John, anything else?
No, I think one of the things that's cool is when you do come across that new hire, you kind of forget how much you've learned until you meet somebody that's new to the industry. And then they come in and I call them the white belts, right? They're a white belt and they don't know anything. And they're like, I don't even know this, and this. And you kind of see how much you've experienced. And it's a cool opportunity to be able to say, let me show you. I had the same thing. This is what I did. I had the same headache. This was my experience. You don't have to follow it, but this is maybe some advice. So it's awesome, and I know anytime you guys get that chance, I'm sure you'll really be helpful to others. So really appreciate that. Just paying it forward, right? And thinking about that, if somebody came to you and they asked you uh, that question of maybe the number one question we get really is how do I get into cybersecurity? How do I get a job in cybersecurity? And different paths for different people, but that might be one question. Another question would be, is there any advice you have for somebody that wants to get into cybersecurity? Because there's lots of different things they could focus on: certifications, training, internships, whatever. That might be a better question to tackle. Is like, what advice would you give someone that is really interested in cybersecurity? So, Melissa, what would you say?
Yeah. I guess for starters, like find an entry level job like a SOC. Obviously, we're a little biased with that. That's a great place to kind of just dive in. But also, like one of my, I guess I'll call him a mentee. I don't really know if he considers himself that because we work together like every day. But he started off in the help desk and then worked to get his certifications, and now he's right there beside me doing the exact same thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's really just you have to have and show the interest of learning as much as possible and have the confidence in yourself with the skill sets that you pick up along the way. That would definitely be my kind of big advice.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. How about you?
Um, I would say like, yeah, and continuous learning, but I had the experience of getting so overwhelmed with all the options out there, knowing nothing about cybersecurity, all those independent trainings. I didn't even know which ones were worthwhile. So what I would say is try to apply it to real world opportunities. Like go online, see actual, high level jobs, medium and low, and see something that they all have in common. So in my case, they all said sock on it. So that's what led me to the sock too, because I saw that was a similar trend. But, trying to actually find real world examples or certain certificates that are on all those job requirements, that kind of helps you, you know, build your path towards a good way to enter the field, whether that be through certificates or a job opportunity. But it's kind of knowing yourself. If you know you're better at independent learning and you've done all this research, and kind of accumulated a path forward to, study on your own, do that. If you have nowhere to start like myself and you need someone to tell you, like it's good to find internship opportunities or at least, shadow people in the industry and just say like, hey, can I just follow you around if you get the opportunity and you're already set up for that. Obviously, if you are in history and you don't know anything about computers, that's a little bit of a different path, right? Stepping stones. But
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, just to kind of double click on that a little bit for sure. Like I tell people that too, is go look at jobs that are out there. Go look at postings for jobs. That's their wish list. Don't be too intimidated by their wish list, but that's as people that have to create these job descriptions
Yes.
who really don't like to do this. I don't think anybody loves creating a job description. Now, thankfully, there's ChatGPT that can help you develop a job description, right? Now, help me tweak this, but it stinks. Nobody likes it. So you come up with your wish list and you give all those skills and things that you want to highlight. But for the job seeker, go look at that and see what their wish list looks like. And if you are starting at zero, like you said, Kelly, what are the common themes? What are the things that they're looking for generally, big, broadly, and then maybe dive into that a little bit more. But this skill set or this experience, okay, the 10 jobs I looked at, 15, whatever, they all have a common theme here. How do I work on that specific thing and follow that path to get that experience, to get those skills? So definitely agree with that. Awesome. So looking forward, and Melissa said you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, but um, there's a lot of opportunities in security. There's so many you can pick from, so many to choose from, and really figuring that out so that you're kind of at that next stage of, okay, I'm doing this for a while. How long will I hang out here before I maybe want to move to a different role, different possibility? The good news is there's lots of opportunities, especially as you build up your career and your experience with security. But what are you thinking about still in this of the 2 years, 3 years kind of roadmap of what it might lead you to? Melissa, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think I've definitely like tried to shadow as many people as I can to figure that out, right? So I'm thinking I'm gonna definitely continue talking to as many people as I can and figuring out what I do and do not like. I think the next kind of pivot that I'm gonna take is try to look into more of like the risk and compliance, maybe some vulnerability management, see how that kind of suits my interests and kind of piece it from there, see what jobs are available, what certifications there are, what does that all entail, you know? So it's definitely one of the things I've loved about security is it's a little bit different every day. So
Yeah.
How about you, Kelly?
I would say I find it challenging not to pigeonhole myself into one tool, especially at bigger corporations. Like right now, I'm strictly doing web application security firewall management. Like I run all of that all the time. And, I'm learning that inside and out. So in my mind, my goal would be to learn that to mastery, right? Everything web application firewall, and then kind of take that with me, move on to the next type of security thing. But, in the meantime, while I'm trying to get that mastery, I don't want to lose touch with everything else that I could be learning. So, yeah, I always hop into meetings that I'm not necessarily a part of the teams for security. People are kind of like, why is Kelly here? And I'm just like listening in the background. I have nothing to contribute. But if it's not too sensitive, if the information isn't too sensitive and they let me sit in, I try to absorb as much as I can in that way. I also, I have my own laptop that I do ethical hacking stuff with, even though I don't ever really touch red team things, but I try to at least stay relevant with that. So when people do discuss it, I know what the heck they're saying. It's kind of about staying relevant to the current conversations in the industry so you can contribute enough to, eventually go down that path. That's kind of what I try to keep open, like in general, as I like advance throughout my career. Master things, move on, master things, move on, and then hopefully I can look back and have all of this like very good experience, that I can
Yeah.
then leverage later.
Yeah. Be a well-rounded
Yeah,
cybersecurity
Yeah,
professional.
exactly. Which is harder than it sounds, honestly.
it
Yes.
is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, awesome. One topic too that I wanted to make sure we talked about was just what is it like, for a woman in cybersecurity, women in cybersecurity, and I get questions about that recently. This week, I was saying I had got a question from a lady in Australia, and she was like, "Hey, I'm looking for what just to kind of understand how hard is it for a lady to get into cybersecurity for a woman." And I, obviously I don't have that experience, and I don't know. I just know from the hiring side, my experience, and from the internship side. At one time, we had more ladies in the SOC than men,
Yep, we
and that
did.
was awesome.
Yeah.
As a father of three girls and one boy, we're outnumbered. But no, I mean, I'm always trying to look for opportunities and to help others either way, right, wherever I can. But especially because you go look at a computer science classroom, right, and it's like 99% guys.
Yeah.
So I know you live that life, but yeah, I guess what's your experience there? Do you feel like you've had challenges because of that, or has it been great? I really don't know. Just curious to get your thoughts on that. So, Melissa, would you go first?
honestly, I think during the hiring process, I didn't really experience like anything negative because I was a woman entering security. Um, But obviously, like you said, like it is a very male dominated field, and I guess personally, like you can let it affect you as much as you want to. Like there are definitely days where I am the only girl on every single call. And like there have been times where like I am the subject matter expert on something and I have to repeat myself multiple times because they're not really listening to me.
Mm.
Um, but you know, that's kind of where the confidence in your skill sets need to come into play, you know? So just be confident in yourself and know that you're hot stuff. Like you're there for a reason, you know?
That's right.
So it'll just it is what it is, I guess is my kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to chime in there, that was something I learned I guess at the beginning of my career. I guess sometimes you get in your own head when you're in a meeting and maybe you're having to present or you're having to talk about a subject and to others, maybe leadership or other people within the meeting, but you are the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
You are the one that knows exactly what's happening, and you're there to explain to people that have no idea what you're talking about what's happening. So yeah, have that confidence in yourself and know that you belong there, and what you are going to share is important, and they better listen or they'll be on Channel 7 News.
Right. And like I guess something else to kind of mention is it's not like women in security, like even though we're a small number now, like it's not something that's going to be changed overnight, you know? So you just kind of have to keep an open mind and like continue to be positive and try to bring as many girls with you, you know? Like come on,
Yeah.
it's fun over here. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great too. Like, for ladies that are interested in cybersecurity, they may not know that what it's like. So when they hear you tell your story and oh, it is possible, you open up opportunities by just sharing that you're out there, that this is my experience, and it just is encouraging for others. Like, oh, okay, I can make it through this, and there is something on the other side. So yeah, we definitely need more. But Kelly, how about you?
Yeah, I can say after going through college classes where I was, we were literally one of five girls, I feel like in the whole major sometimes. So that's an extreme example. And then when you go into industry, there's actually, in my experience, more women in the industry than there were in my classes. So, but, still not a lot. Like on my whole cyber team, I think I'm one of four, women. Um, but one thing I do find interesting is kind of the placement of women in different cyber roles. So for example, like in risk and compliance, that's where the majority of the women are on my team. Same with SOC work. Half of our SOC right now at my current company, they're women. But all the other kind of cyber roles like security engineering or like my web application firewall, there's can't find a girl to save your life in those roles. So it's funny, where I go and I find more, they all seem to be attracted, or we all seem to be attracted more so to more analytical work or more of the compliance policy side, which is pretty interesting. Um, yeah, and in terms of being, the only girl in meetings, it's kind of one of those things where I don't really, in all honesty, I don't really notice anymore because it's just like another day type of thing. So it's kind of one of those things that I tell people, if you're going to get into an industry that's not necessarily female dominated, it's not like this is an industry full of nurses, right? Where everyone's a chick. So if you're you kind of get used to that feeling of not being surrounded by women early on, and then you kind of learn how to navigate that as as you know more what you're doing, or as you get more responsibility, and you kind of learn to navigate that not only as a young professional but as like a woman too in this type of space. So it's a growth thing for sure, but you learn as you go how to handle different situations, to not have the mindset of feeling like, oh, everyone must be against me. It's totally a mindset thing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that's the most of what we wanted to cover, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Yeah, no, I just first of all want to say thank you to both Melissa and Kelly. We really appreciate you taking the time
Absolutely.
and joining us. And just I expect, a little side check here when you guys become famous on YouTube. So
donate to the golf cart fund.
Yes, that's still alive. Man, I feel like that's still alive. We're gonna get there eventually.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but no, just again, all seriousness, thank you both. Really appreciate it. We'll have to have you back for sure. Maybe next time we can include Carlos. Carlos, if you're listening to this, yeah, you'll get the invite soon. Trust me.
Yeah. No,
No,
thank you.
yeah,
Really,
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And I think there's a lot of wisdom, even though you're still new to cybersecurity. That's okay. There's a lot of wisdom. You're like blue belt level, maybe purple belt level. You're getting up
Working our
there.
way up.
Yeah, working your way up, and it's really helped. You may not know how much people appreciate it, but hearing your story
Yeah,
and how much they can say, "Oh, relate to that," and
yeah,
relate to your experiences. It's your story, it's your experience, but there's somebody there that maybe is in the same boat and is unsure. So definitely thank you for sharing.
Of course. Glad
Yeah,
to
no problem.
have come on. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
awesome.
All right,
Thank you both.
with that, we're out.